So hello everyone. Our today's topic is eyeball. As we know all that eyeball it is the organ of sight. It is almost spherical in shape and is made up of three concentric layers. The outer or the fibrous coat that consists of sclera and cornea. The middle coat is known as uveal tract that consists of choroid, ciliary body and the iris, whereas the inner or the nervous coat is known as the retina. The light entering the eyeball, it passes through the several refracting media. From before backward there are cornea, aqueous humor, lens and the vitreous body. Now let us discuss these coats one by one. The first is the sclera. The sclera is opaque and forms the posterior 5/6 of the eyeball. It is dense fibrous tissue that is firm and maintains the shape of eyeball. It is thickest near the entrance of the optic nerve and is thinnest behind the sclerocorneal junction, where the recti muscles are inserted. It is weakest at the entrance of the optic nerve. The sclera show numerous perforations for the passage of fibers of optic nerve. So because of its sieve-like appearance, this region is known as lamina cribrosa. The outer surface of sclera is white and smooth, and it is covered by Tannen capsule. The inner surface is brown and grooved for the ciliary nerves and vessels. It is separated from the choroid by perichoroidal space. The deep part of the limbus. The sclera is continuous with the cornea at the sclerocorneal junction, that is known as the limbus. The deep part of the limbus, it contains circular canal that is known as canal of Schlemm. So the aqueous humor, it drains into the anterior ciliary veins through this sinus. The sclera is fused posteriorly with the dural sheath of optic nerve. The sclera is pursed by a number of structures. Number one, the optic nerve. Second, the ciliary nerve. Third, anterior ciliary arteries. The sclera is almost avascular. The next is the cornea. It is the transparent layer. It replaces the sclera over the anterior 1/6 of the eyeball. Its junction with the sclera is known as sclerocorneal junction or the limbus. The cornea, it is more convex than the sclera. Its curvature diminishes with the age and is separated from the iris by space known as anterior chamber of the eye. The cornea is avascular and it is nourished by lymph that circulates in the numerous corneal spaces and by lacrimal fluid. It is supplied by branches of the ophthalmic nerve through the ciliary ganglion and short ciliary nerves. The pain is only sensation that is aroused from the cornea. The cornea consists of following structures from before backwards. Number one, the corneal epithelium that is made up of stratified squamous non-keratinized type. Second, the Bowman membrane. Third, substantia propria. Fourth, elastic lamina. And last is the simple squamous mesothelium. Remember, the cornea, it can be grafted from one person to the other as it is avascular. As we know that you get a question in your exam, identify the structure. This image represents the myopia or hypermetropia. The anterior posterior diameter of eyeball and shape and curvature of cornea determine the focal point. So changes in these results in either myopia, that is the short sightedness, or hypermetropia, or the long sightedness. The middle coat. The middle coat is formed by choroid, the thin pigmented layer that separates the posterior part of sclera from the retina. Posteriorly, it is perforated by optic nerve to which it is firmly attached. Ciliary body, it's a thickened part of the uveal tract lining just posterior to the corneal limbus. It suspends the lens and helps in accommodation for near vision. Iris, it is the anterior part of the uveal tract. It forms the circular curtain within the opening in the center and is known as the pupil. So by adjusting the size of pupil, it controls the amount of light entering the eye, and it behaves like an adjustable diaphragm. The iris, it contains well-defined ring of muscles, that is sphincter pupillae, which lies near the margin of pupil. Its nerve supply is similar to that of ciliary muscles. The dilator pupillae is an ill-defined sheet of radial muscles placed near the posterior surface of iris that is supplied by the sympathetic nerves. Retina. It is the inner layer of the eyeball. It is continuous posteriorly with the optic nerve. The outer surface of retina is attached to choroid, while the inner surface it is attached with the haloid membrane. Opposite the entrance of optic nerve, there is circular area known as optic disc. So the retina, it diminishes in thickness from behind forward, and it is divided into optic, ciliary and iridial part. The optic part of retina, it contains nervous tissue and is sensitive to light. It extends from the optic disc to posterior end of the ciliary body. The anterior margin of optic part of retina forms a wavy line that is known as ora serrata. The depressed area of the optic disc is known as physiological cup. It contains no rod or cones and is therefore insensitive to light, or known as blind spot. At the posterior pole of eye, 3 mm lateral to the optic disc, there is another depression that is known as macula lutea. It is avascular and is yellow in color. The center of the macula is further depressed to form fovea centralis. It is the thinnest part of the retina. It contains cone only and is site of maximum acuity of vision. So the rods and cones, they are light receptor of eye. The rod will contain pigment known as visual purple. They can respond to dim light. The periphery of retina contains only rod, but the fovea has none. The cone responds to the bright light and are sensitive to color. The fovea centralis has only cones. Their number diminishes toward the periphery of the retina. The retina, it is composed of 10 layers. There was a question in exam that all are layers of retina except. So remember these 10 layers: outer pigment layer, layer of rods and cones, external limiting membrane, outer nuclear layer, outer plexiform layer, inner bipolar cells, inner plexiform layer, ganglion cells, nerve fiber cells, and internal limiting membrane. The retina is supplied by which artery? Remember, it is supplied by central artery. It is an end artery. Aqueous humor. It is a clear fluid that fills the space between the cornea and the front and lens behind the anterior segment. So this space is divided by iris into anterior and posterior chamber, through which freely communicate with each other through the pupil. The aqueous humor is secreted into the posterior chamber from the capillary in the ciliary process. Interfering with the drainage of aqueous humor into canal of Schlemm results in increase in intraocular pressure, that is the glaucoma, that produces the cupping of optic disc and pressure atrophy of retina that will cause blindness. Remember the aqueous humor, it is rich in ascorbic acid, glucose and amino acid, and nourishes the avascular tissue of the cornea and the lens. Overproduction of the aqueous humor raises the intraocular pressure. The condition is glaucoma. The lens, it is transparent biconvex structure that is placed between the anterior and posterior segment of eye. The central portion of the anterior and posterior surface are known as anterior posterior poles. The lens has varying degree of dioptric power. The sensory ligament, that is the zanule of Zinn, retains the lens in position and keep it tension, and its tension keep the anterior surface of lens flattened. The posterior surface of lens, it is more convex than the anterior. The anterior surface is flattened by the tension of the suspensory ligament. When the ligament is relaxed by contraction of the ciliary muscle, the anterior surface becomes more convex due to the elasticity of lens substance.